How come we don't have a floor manager? Well, you...
The floor manages itself pretty well.
Either that or I was going to say they're down on the job. Of all their inner functions, men perceive only thinking to be something that they do. They'll say, I thought about it. But as involves respiration, for instance, they never say, I breathed it. Or with the circulation of blood, I pumped it. Only thinking is thought of as something continually occurring in man for which he is deliberately responsible. Life is arranged in the mental realm so that if you figure out what 2 and 2 equals, you get to go on and calculate the sum of 4 plus 4. And once you get that down, you're allowed to move forward and deal with questions involving 8s and so on. The only ones concerned about measurable progress are those who are going nowhere. The size of a lion's stomach is the size of his universe. The size of a man's head, his. When he finally reached home, one man thought, what a long way to go to have gone so shortly. It is those not yet comfortable with their civilized state who look upon the crude customs of primitive people with envy. Although most people quickly forget about it, as soon as everyone is born on this planet, local conditions whispers this piece of important info. You've got a mouth, and you can talk about anything you want to. What I mean is that you've probably forgotten you were told that, not that you've forgotten to do it. A viewer writes, I think you pick on talk far too much. For if most of us didn't talk, we wouldn't know what we think. Yeah. And even though the correspondent is correct, what is even more interesting is that he finds nothing particularly curious about the situation as he describes it. When the simple truths about life strike men as unacceptable, they will concoct more complex ideas in which to conceal them. What's with all the gestures tonight? They're free and worth every penny of it. It's said that on one world, the creatures are born already fully developed and outfitted and are immediately handed a mirror so they can look at themselves and complain, you don't expect me to wear that, do you? Take it any way you want to. That's one of the benefits on the side of the metaphorical. It's according to how it strikes you. You can take something as metaphorical, or if it is not riding very much across your pecker, you can take it literally. The call's yours. There is at least one thing that you can definitely say about the state of superior awareness, enlightenment, etc., wherein you are conscious without comment, and that is, you are either in the state or you're not. It's nice that some things in life appear to be as simple as they actually are, isn't it? Other than its survival-enhancing technologies, all of civilization consists of meaningless rituals, and it is therefore a fool's sport to deal in criticizing it. The latest diagnosis, validity guaranteed only through July of this year. If it's in your head and it's not a tumor, it's probably your mind. Those with complex and elaborate explanations of life have no idea what's really going on. Man is the only creature fueled by twin energies, a mechanical physical one and a mental willful one, although they are both mechanical and physical. So I guess it turns out that man is the only creature being fooled like he is. The truth about mystical teaching is that it has nothing to teach. Moses so said to a group of interested listeners, "Even though I cannot take you to the promised land, it is certainly my wish that you finally visit there so that you then know what all of this fuss is about." A man had a garden, but it wasn't his garden until he made it so. One man came face to face with this: if thinking is something I purposefully do, like deciding to go wash my car, then before each thought I have, there must be some plan on my part to have such a thought, which there is not. Astounding, what? And the collective mind of man made note. This is the kind of idea about which we care not to think. Indeed, about which we cannot think. End quote. Perhaps a minor encouraging hint. Once you've sufficiently visited the condition, all ideas or concerns about the train to take you there, the station in Paris from which you depart, all of the troubles along the way, and all of the questions regarding the actual nature of Istanbul, all of that disappears and is forgotten. Of course, there is another way to see this in a non-positive light, which is, damn, another hobby down the drain. It takes more than patience to get there, more than intelligence, more than strength, and something other than all of these. What the mind of the enlightened secretly knows, if you can talk about it, it ain't worth it. Muhammad one day found himself surrounded by a group of people who believed they had interests similar to his, and as they stared at him with the apparent expectation that he would comment on that certain matter, he said to them, "If it is true travel that you want, then don't bum me and yourselves out with the demand for descriptions."
Do that one over.
What the hell is the conversation?
Lost the camera.
Oh. What are you going to do?
We're fine, cable back in.
What the mind of the enlightened secretly knows. If you can talk about it, it ain't worth it. Muhammad one day found himself surrounded by a group of people who believed they had interests similar to his, and as they stared at him with the apparent expectation that he would comment on that certain matter, he said to them, "If it is true travel that you want, then don't bum me and yourselves out with the demand for descriptions." Ignorance exists in but one area: thinking. Huh?
Still on.
Things are arranged so that if you're normal, ordinary, and civilized, you're supposed to concern for your fellow man and be prepared, if not anxious, to help him, particularly in non-physical matters. But as natural and apparently admirable as this be, it is solely for the benefit of collective humanity and of no specific assistance to the individual, and is, in fact, for the few, of potential detriment. Trying to save drowning men who are not actually drowning is worse than a mere waste of time. All acts that encourage a blind man to be even blinder are to be avoided. You can stick your tongue out at your stomach, at your face, at your sexual parts. But what you cannot do, leastwise not to any discernible end, is to make fun of your mind, if you're everyday people. In an attempt to reverse, or at least combat, what appeared to be a certain inevitable tendency, one man began referring to his twit as "you silly thoughts." Buddha once said to a group of interested people, "Although I cannot take you to enlightenment, I can slap the continuing shit out of your shadows." Things you can watch for. A dumb man always objects. There is only one thing that will make a man beat up on himself: thinking. To be fascinated and or critical of the world of human activities is to be captivated by the same song sung over and over again with continual minor variations. It is no wonder that the city is such an endlessly frantic and noisy place. It must be to survive. Ergo, if you can see it, consciousness of the situation is never in fashion. Where creatures are not disturbed, they seek no explanations. Once he finally realized that there is no cure for death and none for stupidity, this one guy thought, well, hell, there ain't no cure for anything.
Yeah.
And his feet thought, where you been? At their monthly fun and games meeting, one member of a certain explorers club made the following toast to the real mystics, who can be identified by the fact that they are either in that special state or wishing that they were. And in fact, sometimes even making effort to be there. End of toast. A fellow noted, everyone likes a story about a wounded warrior. And someone asked, is that because everyone likes to think of themselves as a warrior, or because everyone enjoys the idea of being wounded? Exactly, he replied. And they all went home happy. After a lengthy attempt to describe to his son what he meant by indifference, the lad brushed him away, saying, it doesn't matter, I don't care. And they both savored the sweet smell of private success. There is but one form of subterfuge: thinking. All conditions are conducive to a man's awakening, no better and no worse than any other conditions. For the true inner pilot, it's always a good day for flying. A man had a garden, but it wasn't his garden until he began to grow his own. Alert, alert, caution alert. The mind gives no warning. Just having one should be your warning. A man who acts like he is seriously concerned about helping you either does not know what he's doing or else realizes that you're not up to taking the treatment head on. One guy's take on it: hearing ordinary men criticize other ordinary men is like watching sweat perspire. One man used to play a nostalgia game he called "Where Are They Now?" concerning his thoughts.
Yeah.
Consciousness without comment is like jump ball in the mental game, but one which never falls back to the floor. A demagnetized mind is one that can juggle fire. One man's private slogan is, big mouth, big future, assuming that you plan to stay in the city. Perhaps the deepest distinction between the ordinary and the few is that the former find such things as politics, government, and financial affairs to be the most important aspect of their life, while the few find it to be the matter of their own consciousness. One man's personal motto is, keep your eye on the ball, your foot on the throttle, and a clap on the comments. If the mind could help you be more conscious, it would. It does now all that it can do to assist, which is to hint, suggest, and insinuate, which still is not the state itself, but it's better than nothing, and it's free. One of the secrets about life that can be verbally expressed. If you look an ordinary man directly in the eye, you can see his eye. That's E-Y-E. The view from consciousness without comment makes everyone look foolish. In spite of its deserved bad reputation, all causes of awakening are in the mind. On the starboard side of his new RV, one man painted this message. Where do thoughts come from? You don't know, and I don't know. So get out of my way. The Tutmans, Clearwater, Florida. I see they have friends here. So as to save me from having to skip around rhetorically and not keep referring to myself, which is not the point, and to help cut down the possibility of listeners becoming entangled with their notion of me instead of what I'm talking about, finally, after all this time, let's do it an easy way. I'll refer to a third party, unnamed, but this unnamed third party to whom I shall refer, I give you my solemn assurance that I know the man full well, and everything that I may say about him, I know to be a fact. There is a certain man, it's alleged. Couldn't resist it. There's reputed to be this one man. Myth tells. One man who knew what was going on in life, and at times I'll put in his mouth even that he used the term the secret of life and etc. And in the same way that you've heard here and you've read and heard from other sources, whether they understood what they were saying or not, being of no particular consequence, but the fact that there either certain things or the one certain thing about life can never be revealed. And the crude terms in the public marketplace being such notions as the enlightenment cannot be described. What people see is not subject to a verbal detailing. But this guy took partial acceptance to that there are things that can be said. But here's a curious part. Curious in a very substantial manner, may I suggest to you. There is something that can be said that you could tell an interested person having to do with the true nature of life, the very things that sane people, ordinary people, in passing, pay lip service to having an interest therein. Or some people swear directly that they have an extremely passionate, continuing interest therein about what's the nature of life, what's going on here. And this man to whom I refer took some exception to the idea that there's not anything that you can actually say once you know what it is. There is something, according to him, that you could say. And he knew people who were as interested as was possible to ascertain another person being interested. And yet he said that there were reasons, or a reason, at least a reason, that kept him from telling them the one thing, at least one thing, that could actually be said. If you want to make the story more interesting. So I sat down with him one day and said, "Why is that?" Makes it sound like we're a little further away, doesn't it? Well, I wanted to, but he never would take the time to talk to me, so I just had to figure it out. I asked him, tried to engage him in conversation about, well, why is this? I mean, if there's something that you could say, beyond all of the historically accepted ideas that an awakened consciousness, an enlightened consciousness, the total liberation of the mind, all of those many descriptions, of them all saying what it is that a man sees in that state, what he realizes about the nature of life, the nature of man, in that state cannot be described. It's just a waste of time, that only a fool would try to do so. That you understand, once you see it, that there is nothing to be said. There is a reason, according to this fellow, that there is a reason that has always been said, and or, on the alternative, I should say, there is a reason that has become accepted wisdom. Whether a Buddha or Jesus or Zoroaster or anybody ever actually said it that way publicly. It has become a part. It has become an accepted icon, a belief, a reality within the so-called transcendental realm. But this guy said that was not absolutely true, that there was something that you could say to people who were interested, who had never had the experience, that there was something that you could say. And I said, well, have you ever told anybody? And he said, no. So, can I buy you more coffee? Would you? Why? If there's something you could say, there's something that can be said, if you had an audience. He said, yeah. And you're saying that you knew some people that was as good an audience as you could look for, and you would assume that the man would have some talent in knowing who might have some possibility of hearing it. So we must assume that. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, why wouldn't you say it? Of all the times I've been kicking around fiction, I suddenly feel like a novelist. And he picked up his coffee, lit another cigarette, and as the smoke waffled around his dark curly hair, and the sun came through, now I see why people like fiction, or like writing it. You get paid for just ordinary bullshit. I never thought about it. Get paid for your daydreams by the word. So that's what happens when you criticize without knowing what you're doing. Boy, do I feel foolish now. I asked him why. Here we got two possibilities. He either told me why, and now I don't want to tell you, or else he told me why, well, there are three possibilities, and I don't know how to tell you, or, well, no, actually four. Or he didn't tell me, and I figured out, well, that's silly. Or else he told me, and when he told me, I realized why he never told anybody. So there you are. We got three possibilities. You want to take a vote as to which one you want me to work with. There is a purpose to this, as I assume all of you know, an individual purpose. Well, let's take a small break right now. Back to the matter of criticism. I'll return to what we're talking about in just a moment. I will. Swear to God I will. The matter of criticism, after the many shot puts, pole vaults, discus that I have hurled at the matter of criticism, I'm assuming that everyone understands insofar as the way it's put oftentimes, like even tonight with several news items about how foolish it is to criticize other people. That doesn't even come into play. There's everything else in the life of someone who has some idea what this is about. The conditions going on out in the world, not just whether you got wounded, not just whether you've got leukemia and are dying, not just whether it rained a day, even worse than leukemia, and messed up your new hairdo. Or whether it's your feeling of criticism that the whole world's crazy, that everybody's insane. That is just irrelevant. That does not even bear upon what this is about. The criticism has to do with the thinking inside of a person's head. Assuming if you do ascertain, that was important tonight, I'm glad I brought that news item and I found it. You should ascertain, if it's up in here and you know for a fact it's not a tumor, then it's your thinking. So anyway, but you should, as always, health first. Anyway, you should be sure before you mistaken a tumor for your thinking, see a doctor. Either that, those of you who are good, it's always down to this. If you can't tell the difference between a tumor and thinking, seeing a doctor is not going to help. Or if you don't know the difference between thinking and a tumor, you might as well have a tumor. It doesn't matter either way you go. And so once you begin to see it, that's why conditions are spelled irrelevant with two I's, not just one. It's I, R, etc. It's super irrelevant. That's why I spell it with two. Or this other guy does. He taught me that. The thing about criticism is anything you think, what goes through a man's mind is normally referred to as his thinking. All you got to do is notice yourself. I would suggest to you that in the high 90 percentile, high 90 percentage, all thought is in some form critical. I'm not going to debate and argue this much. You either see it or you don't. It doesn't have to be what an ordinary person, if you could take your thoughts at any given time and flash them, if they would go from your head up on a screen and gone into a coherent sentence, which would be, I guess that'd be something in itself. Anyway, assuming this magic machine would turn your thought into a readable, coherent sentence, and you see what it is, even though it might not have words about critical and it might not be pointing fingers at anybody specific, all you got to do is have some experience, some personal objective experience of what is called thinking that's been running through your head from a very early age. And to see that it is based almost entirely on some form of criticism. That is simply the nature of how the mind is constructed. That is the nature, in a wider sense and collective sense, of what is, I just generally refer to as civilization, life in the city. That is the same thing upon which it is built. When you have something that has a non-physical, a non-biological survival basis, in other words, something that is, in the ultimate analysis, irrelevant, it's not absolutely necessary. Once you're dealing with that, then all, quote, progress in such an area is in some form illusion expanded. And so it has to be criticism. In other words, if we just pick out arbitrarily that the area of philosophy, serious human reflection, let's just say it started with the Greeks. You understand that life would have died intellectually did not the Romans come along, for instance, we're just making it crude, and looked at what the Greeks did and said, well, not bad for a bunch of olive growers, but here's the way it should go. And then next, here come our great Germanic forefathers to carry it on even higher. They looked at what the Romans and everybody else had done and went, kind of ruined the sequence. I shouldn't have done that. The Franks came in. The point is, I couldn't resist. Couldn't resist. The thing is, when you're dealing with an area that is not absolutely de rigueur for physical survival, it has to be a constant process. One way I'll just picture it for you is on this barren plain, men began to build cities. Civilization started, the intellect started, and civilization being in each individual man's mind writ on a collective scale. And the only way it grows is the city is completely, the city and cities are continually being destroyed, razed, and I say destroyed, they're at least attacked. They at least are assaulted to the point, and sometimes they apparently are destroyed, but they're continually rebuilt. That's the way it has to be. If something is biologically of a necessity, like eating, no one has yet improved upon eating. And humanity has had as long to work on that as they have philosophy, fiction. No one has improved on screwing. The sexual act has never been improved upon. Sleeping. No one has found any way to improve upon sleeping. It's just, so there you are. But when you're in areas beyond just about those three, anything that is an absolute survival necessity, after that, it has to be a matter of fashion. It is a continual, which some people, you can see in the midst of it, it opens itself up to some quite ordinary criticism, because people in the midst of it, I'm talking about people not any more conscious or comprehensive than their neighbor, it's easy to turn around at life and make fun of it. Make fun of the apparent, quote, progress, the positive changes. But it has to be. It's not a matter of whether it's positive or negative. That's just part of the process of it being destroyed and built back up. Because from somebody's view, oh, we lost everything. Oh, we went astray when we did so-and-so. And then somebody says, boy, it's a good thing that we got away from so-and-so. That would have killed us. Neither one is correct as opposed to incorrect. But the thing is, when you're in an area that is non-survival based, that's less than absolutely necessary, it has to be continually run back out on a catwalk for this year. It has to be continually, you have to raise the skirt, lower the skirt, raise the skirt, lower the skirt, make it a dark color, make it a light color, make it a dark color, make it a light color, raise the skirt again. Yeah, it's been, lower it, now darken. That's it. And only a fool, that is, an ordinary person, believes himself a serious social observer, a critic with a capital C. And to look upon all of this meaningless bullshit and find it worthy of criticism. So that's the fun, that's the overlooked fun of it all. That's one way you can look at, by the way, if you never thought about it, of the public forms of mysticism, occultism, New Ageism as it's called now. There are two ways. As always, it's not seen this way, but I assume some of you will get there. Two ways you could look upon the relationship between occultism, mysticism, New Ageism throughout the ages, whatever it was called. Between that and organized standard religion. You can look at it two ways. Those involved with New Age and occultism have always looked at it this way. Their view is that the attempt, the mystical attempt, is an attempt to improve, to correct the shortcomings of religion. Right? But another view is, in other words, it's superior. It's superior in its attempt that it is here to correct the flaws, to fill in the missing blanks of religion. So on that basis, if you don't go any further, just even theoretically, you can go, well, that's right. And from that view, then mysticism, just in its commonly conceived of definition, is superior. No offense anywhere, but it is superior to religion because it is here attempting to improve upon it, to correct it. Okay. There is, however, another way you could look at it. That it's stupider than religion to try and reform something that's stupid to start with. I thought everybody'd love that. I could use other examples, but it's a great one. It just popped up tonight. You don't get it? That you can, in either way, this is no sarcasm for those of you just tuning in. It's not cynicism. It's not sophomoric Mad Magazine time. But I'm taking mysticism from one view has always been, and claimed to be, those who are publicly involved, has always been pointed out that it was not simply the antithesis or not the opposition to organized religion, but was the attempt to expand it. It was the attempt to either correct its flaws or to fill in its missing parts. That it was actually good that it was here to try and pull religion up and straighten it out. Unless you understand anything at all. And then there's a view that's even worse than opposite. It's funny, which makes it better than opposite. And that is to take something, when I said religion's stupider, you understand I didn't mean stupid, but you're taking something that cannot fulfill its own self-declared aim, like everything else in civilization. It cannot. It never will. So you've got this thing, religion, that takes itself very seriously, as it should. It's almost synonymous with civilization, truly. But here it is, religion, something that takes itself deadly seriously. And there is no way that it can ever fulfill its aims. It doesn't even come close. It's no worse than sports, art, fiction, but it's no better. Except that it carries almost the banner of civilization single-handedly, or it's the best carrier of it. So there it is, taking itself with extreme solemnity and it cannot do what it purports to do. It can't get any closer than it did the first day. It never gets any closer. So here it is, you have something like everything else in civilization, but here you've got something that does not and cannot and will not work, okay? But then you have something to come along that in a positive, in a good-natured, in a beneficial way, criticizes religion and is going to improve it. It's going to save a drowning man who's not drowning. Or it's going to fix the broken wheels on this wagon that doesn't exist. Back to criticism. It has nothing to do, it's only ordinary people, only religion, as a matter of fact, and certain humanistic senses of morality that's only involved with the idea that you should not criticize your fellow man. You're all aware in Christianity and Judaism, all over the world, religions are replete. It seems to be right at the heart of the way in which they're attempting to direct a man's behavior is you should not criticize your fellow man. He who is without a boombox, let him throw the first rock at a man playing Lawrence Welk on a harmonica. Don't criticize your fellow man. Be big-hearted. You know, God tolerates him. Why can't you? Perhaps you got better taste than God. I don't know. That was off the record. I don't know. It just came to my liver. It just. But all of that is irrelevant. With ordinary people, it seems to be irrelevant because that is the sort of thing that helps hold civilization together. That kind of morality and decency and religion that we're all in favor of. But insofar as it having any specific impact on an individual man, I mean, it sounds so admirable to say, well, you should not criticize your fellow man. Not only will the gods find favor with you, but it will help your fellow man. What good will it do your fellow man, your brother, your sister on this planet who are having their own hard time, God bless them? Why should you come along and kick them while they're stumbling, while they're down? Oh, it will be good. In fact, it will be a lesson that they look up and recognize that you're in the position that you could righteously criticize them, and you start to. The forces, the demonic forces, they can see your tongue about to go, and suddenly you stop. And you refrain from what could have been well-deserved or understood criticism, and you refrain. Think how they'll benefit from realizing what happened. Now back to dramatics. Is the whole world crazy? You know damn well nobody benefits from that. They don't even notice. The only thing they might notice at all is like, phew. And usually they don't notice that. Like, well, I got out of it. I thought it was going to be worse. Okay. The point being, what is ordinarily called charity, concern for your fellow man. Now, we're not talking about physical, of helping somebody that's actually in pain or somebody that was drowning. Remember, we're not talking about that. We're talking about in the world of the mind. We're talking about in the world of civilization, not of physically being helpful and assistant to somebody that needs it. That's something else. But into the idea that it is good not to criticize and find fault with your fellow man, and if you don't do that, it will help him. You got to be crazy. That is, you got to be ordinary to believe that. You've had 20 or 30 years of doing it both ways, or probably not doing it, but you've had the occasion to notice what harm does it do people when you criticize them? None. Sometimes it could be good for them. At least they get exercise because they're ready to whip your ass. Yeah. The point is, whether you criticize or don't criticize an ordinary man is, how do you spell moot? M-E-A-N-I-N-G-L-E-S-S. The whole point that, of course, as always, that is the public manifestation, that is the common understanding of the urging not to engage in criticism. It's irrelevant. To them it seems relevant. To them it is relevant. But to a man who's trying to understand anything, it's not that the people are fools. You simply look upon it and see in the individual case. Look at yourself. You've had yourself all these years. What good has criticism done you or the lack of it done you? All you got to do is see, and you see it's irrelevant. At the time, there might be a few words pass. There might be something said such as, well, I appreciate you saying that, or you might tell somebody, hey, bug off. And it seemed to have at least that much significance, but just like that, it's gone. The real significance to it all has to do with a man's own thinking. To find out that anything he thinks, let's go ahead and scrap that high 90th percentile. I know this doesn't sound right. Any comment that the mind has compared to consciousness without comment, anything the mind has to say is critical. If you followed that literally, you'd be within your rights for your mind to go, well, I can follow a lot of this, at least metaphorically, but that can't be true. It can't be that everything the mind says is critical. Yeah, it is. And I can tell you better than that. Everything the mind says is bullshit. Compared to consciousness without comment. That once you've had the experience, then once you've sufficiently had it, you see it for yourself. There's nothing else to say. And it doesn't mean that you'll never have another comment. It doesn't matter that you'll find yourself back in Paris, back in the same old state, back next to Buddha, and both of you looking at each other like, God damn, here we are again. But at least you understand that no matter what your mind says, unless you're in the throes of it, and then of course you and your mind are just dancing, and you're in bed working up a sweat, and both of you naked, and shame on you, because I know what you're doing. And it's not having illicit sex, it's having illicit consciousness. But at any rate, at times you're not at least in the full embrace of your own thinking. You know that whatever your mind, nobody else is, you know that everything ever passed through your mind, any comment your mind has on life, everyone is bullshit. Well, I keep saying that for, I guess, worn out dramatic reasons. It's to be avoided. You know that the one thing that you then want is this, how can I learn to stop this? Is there some way I can stop this forever? Because it is absolutely meaningless. So to call it critical, back to where I said that somebody that heard this would be within their rights for their mind to say, well, that can't be literally true. It is. And critical is actually a fairly bland description of it. It's just that anything the mind says is. Now back to where we were, but you thought I wouldn't do. I asked this guy, all right, if there's something you could say, if there's something that can actually be said, I even pushed him. How about this? Now that I got the spirit of fiction within me. I asked him, so you're saying that the secret itself, you got me? And he went, yeah. All right, you're saying that there's at least some aspect, some shade, some little part of the secret. Maybe not the secret. He went, no. In other words, you can't tell the secret. Let me establish that for all of us. And he went, well, no, you're right. And that's always been true. And I said, but you're telling me now that there is one aspect, which I'm not sure is a good description, and he looked kind of, yeah. But there's a way, there's something about the secret, especially when you, intense gestures and sincerity in the voice. There's some aspect of the secret, he said, yes, that you could say. He went, Yet, I continued, you're telling me that you have never told anyone. He went, And I said, well, can you give me any idea why? He went, A man came face to face with this. He said, if thinking is something that all men, but that I purposefully do, such as not thinking, here, the example, the comparison he made was, such as I decide I will walk across the room to my desk and pick up that pencil. I decide I'll do that. And if I decide it, I can get up, walk over there, and do it. So that would be a purposeful act. He came face to face with us that if thinking is something that I purposefully do, such as that, then before every thought I have, I would have had to have had the plan, the intention to think that thought. Which you know damn well you don't. Well, I say you, I'm speaking now to. This is, if I may, or if I need point out, is probably, or it could be, a very irritating expansion on the other one of what are you going to say next. But you may have thought that about covered it, but no. I mean, most people's minds already rejected that, and always hope I'll never bring it up, or, well, I know some of you dance with a few minutes and it can be fun, but it's one of those things kind of like drinking some drugs. You take a little of them and you think, how great, and sometimes it is great. And then you go back to it and you think, what a supreme bummer. God, if I ever see another bottle of booze, or I ever see any more Coke, yeah, I'll gag. The truth be known, anybody who's given any pondering to the matter of what are you going to say next, I assume at times you can feel like you're, Neri F dancing around like I'm on the close to something great, and at other times you feel like maybe you're Curly on a bad day staggering around almost wishing you'd never heard of the idea, because the mind, all you can do is turn around in circles until you get dizzy and fall down and pass out if you're lucky. So, me and this other guy, understanding that, we thought, hey, why ease up now? Onward. So if you can hear it, this should be, or it has the potential to be even more egregiously annoying. God, I hope so. So don't take it as just being the same now. Consider it. The man said, if thinking, you're thinking all the time. There's what people call thinking. And there was another man tonight where they were written on 2 different pages. I'll leave it up to you whether it was 2 different people. It's not important. But one guy said, he noted, thinking is the only thing that men say that they do of their internal functions. For instance, when it comes to respiration, people don't go, I breathed it. Or the circulation of blood. People don't go, well, somebody says, well, you look alive today. You're still alive. And you go, well, yes. And they go, I bet part of it's thanks to the circulation of blood. And you go, yes, as a matter of fact, I pumped it. Well, we all know you laugh because no one ever says that, but notice this, you have never thought, and people never consider this. There's another function that operates just as constantly, just as predictably, with the same regularity, with ordinary, sane, wired-up people, and that's thinking. It goes on day and night. Your brain is operating the same way that your heart and your lungs are. But what goes on in the brain, as opposed to the lungs and the heart, amongst others, what goes on here is the only inner function in man to which he ascribes his own purposeful involvement. That, well, I thought so-and-so, like I did it. All right, back to the first guy. He came face to face with this. If thinking actually is something that I do, then before each and every thought I have, if it's something that I willfully, purposefully, intentionally do, I mean, this is not philosophy. This is not anything strange. Oh, it may be mind-breaking, and you may throw some of that rotten fruit up here again, which is not bad because I'm running out of snacks anyway. The larder is as bare as an attorney's compassion. Date book. The man said, if thinking is something that I do, because I say I thought so-and-so, it's going on, but it would have to be. This is not open to any discussion. I mean, I know the mind really can't do much with it if you're ordinary. If you're ordinary, can't do anything with it other than perhaps say, well, that's kind of an interesting conundrum. Some way you twisted the language around, but that was kind of cute. I got to go. Because you can't do anything. But here it is. If thinking, says this guy, if thinking is something I do, which you all of your life you've been saying it. And even some of you, I got a strong feeling are going to get a glimpse of something in the next 2 or 3 minutes before this is through. But also notice, not to give you the blues, but notice. You can get a glimpse of something that might make you go, wow. And even you then go, what time is it? Yes. Can you hold your breath forever? Can you stop the heart from pumping forever? But back to the man said, if thinking is something that I do, which I constantly say it, him and everyone else, people continually say, I believe, I think, but they're saying, I think. I think so-and-so, that I do it. And to say I do it, you don't have to put in the modifiers that I willfully do it, I intentionally do it. I did that just to clarify it, since it is now just such a mechanical part of the language and our thinking that no one ever analyzes the term, I think it. I think so-and-so. But what you're saying, without any doubt, this is not open to question. I'm not twisting it. Not yet. To say I think means that you intended to. And so this man came face to face with this finally. He said, if thinking is something that I purposefully do, in the sense, and this is a perfect example. We are not torting similes and metaphors and comparisons. If a man, there you sit and you think, are there things I can purposefully do in life? And you go, yes. That right now, in fact, how do you do it? How do you do something that you wouldn't ordinarily do? How do you manage to go wash your car? How do you manage to get up and go answer the phone? How do you manage to get up and go, I've got to vacuum this floor. I've got to clean this house. It's horrible. It's gone too. How do you do that when you don't need to do it for survival? Your body can look around and just trash pile up in the house. I assume you know this. It's not very important, except for the sake of comparison. From the frontal lobes down, from the midbrain down, below the neural level, your mind would never get up and clean the house. I mean, your body sure as hell would never go wash your car. If the body could in some way be as conscious as the mind and be verbal, you must know this. That's why you must make yourself. Or let's go to the gym. Let's go for a run. And your body goes, yeah, yeah. If it were not for your mind, I assume all of you know this, do you think you would have ever done 1 second's worth of exercise in your life? If you do, God, are you dumb? Do you think you would have ever washed your car, cleaned your house, got a haircut? None of that. You have to purposefully do it. And it has to come from here. So the guy said, if thinking is something that I do, that men do, I continue to say, I think it, I thought that. And if you're not saying it, you think it to yourself, well, I think so, and you take what's going on, that you're doing it. The guy came face to face. There are things that we can obviously compare them with, faithfully, that I can decide to do something willfully. And the unsaid part is what I just went through that I didn't include in the news item, to get up and to do something that is non-essential. Like, well, I will go wash the car. You have to decide to do it, but then by every observation, that decision works. You can go, all right, I've got to. And right quick you think, well, where's the bucket? Do I have enough soap? If I got any clean towels? All right. And you can go, all right. And you get up out of your chair, and you can go do it. But here's the thing. Had you not had a mental plan, a decision to do it, I assume you understand this. I don't, just because I'm talking loud and gesturing, it's not a sermon. It's not going to help. You either see it or you don't. Had you not made the decision, all right, I'll go wash the car, you would have never washed your friggin' car. Never. But you made the decision, and you go, okay. No matter how you drag ass around and mumble and all, but you decide to do it, you can get up and go do it. The man said to himself, if thinking is something that I purposefully do, like deciding to go wash the car and I go do it, then before each and every thought I have, before each thing I think, would have had to have been something similar to the decision making in washing the car. I'd have to decide, all right, I'm going to think about so-and-so. And even more so, there's nothing else to say really. I'm going to think about so-and-so. I'm going to think a certain thing about so-and-so. You would have to plan beforehand to do it to, in any wise, properly say, I thought so-and-so. If you see it, it's as plain as meringue on an umpire's face. I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's just like you turn around like you're living in the stomach of a dragon, and one day you look around and you go, it sure is green in here.
Yeah.
But the ordinary mind, what in the hell can you do with that? Did anybody think that I did not go back to the subject of this man who said that there was something he could say about the secret of life that he had never actually said? Oh, well, I'll pick up where I was. I know I got lost there. And I said, well, why? I mean, if you can do it, I asked him why. He took his time. He looked out into the increasingly dark of the evening, he looked about the small coffee shop, and he stroked his beard in a somewhat thoughtful manner and said to me, I will assume for a second that somebody here or somebody on tape at some other time literally heard what I was pointing out. As always, not to prove that I'm correct, but you need to know it's on your own. Even when you see something like that, notice your mind is like juggling fire. Trying to. It is like attempting to hold your breath for friggin' ever. Your mind can see something like that, and the mind itself, all it can do, it'll go into gridlock. It'll go into a spasm. It just, well, I'm exaggerating to try to get you to see the point. What it does is you go, my God, and it's almost as though you looked right into an atomic flash, but before you know it, it's 5 minutes later. It's the next day. That is that you were just, I'm on the verge. If this don't blow my mind, I'll surely see the face of Buddha. Let's say that this is 9:02 on a Monday night that happens. 9:02 and 16 seconds. And you think, I am so close. And now since we're doing fiction tonight, we move forward. It's Wednesday, 2:30 a.m., and you are somewhere back to where you understand what I'm getting at. You're on the verge of seeing something that your mind, and to say that goes into spasm, it's simply you're back in your normal condition, thinking that you are thinking. My suggestion was that I told you more than that guy ever told anybody else by telling you this story, or the two stories about the two aspects of the guy saying that if I indeed think, if it is I thinking, that in combination with the aspect of showing that it is only, of all of man's inner functions, of everything, it is only here that man ascribes deliberate purpose, willful participation on his part. No one else ever takes any credit. They don't go, it's foolish to say, well, I have to give attention. I have to give my own attention to keeping my heart going. We know that's insanity. But people ascribe, not in this way. We all know no one sits around and analyzes it. It's not even discussed. No one ever thinks about it. But people say, well, I think so-and-so. Really? Oh, my. Assuming the tape's already run out, then your real question, it'll do it to yourself. You know I'm not talking to somebody else. But somebody says, well, I think so-and-so. And you go, my. I'm interested. When did you plan to think that? I mean, was it right before you thought it, or like a week before? Or do you just plan to do what you're doing just before you think it? And of course, a good intelligent person will look you dead in the eye and go, what? Huh?